Welcome to the Shoe Tree Brewcast, where we talk about the latest in all things shoe tree. Also, sometimes we talk about mushrooms. Ladies and gentlemen, here's your host, Jeff and Paul Young. Okay, welcome to the Brewcast, everybody.
Welcome, everyone.
All right, so I think before we get to the much anticipated questions, let's knock out real quick. What do we got going on in the beer world, or what's coming up? Or...
So on the beer roundup, we have Handshake King. The Vanilla Kolsch is currently on draft and in cans at both locations. That's a big, much anticipated release, and that is out now if you haven't seen it.
And it's going quick too.
Yeah.
It's really flying off the shelves.
A few kegs left, so we'll probably end up brewing it again. But
for sure.
If you want your hands on some of that sooner than later, come grab a 4-pack or a pint. And then Straw Nana, now on draft at both locations, and that's a sour ale with strawberry and banana. We did like a photo shoot yesterday and released that, and everyone seemed pretty excited about it. So
yeah, and that's going quick too. So
yep,
don't rest on your laurels.
Lock it down. It's not in cans, so the crawlers and growlers on that one can definitely deplete the kegs pretty quick.
Yep.
Carson has the Munich Dunkel on right now. Soon to be in Minden. We're just waiting for a beer to drop off for it to take its place.
Munich Dunkel, for those of you that don't know, is a dark Munich lager.
Yep. And then Mexican lager should be coming probably early next week.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of down the road, we got fruited yesterday was the Blue Barb.
Yeah, blueberry rhubarb. That's going to be a fun one. We were all tasting the rhubarb puree before we put it in. And I mean, I've had rhubarb in pies and stuff, but I never really just
had like kind of like it. I mean, it's not raw, but it's like pretty raw. So real tart and fun. And then
I think it'll work well.
So I think that's going to be is almost like lemony. It's really good.
Yeah.
And then Bauer kind of showing the whole Dunkel range. We have a Dunkel Weiss that will soon be coming on.
And that'll be a dark wheat beer.
Wheat beer, yep. And so that's kind of what's right on the horizon when it comes to the beer roundup. And then one housekeeping, pretty much for January. We kind of put a brakes on the Shoe Tree sessions. We had a bunch of the acts have to be sick or be out for this or that reason. So we were talking to the gal that does our booking, and we just decided to kind of
let's just take a break.
Pause till about it'll probably be February, and you'll see that come back on. So we just want to let you guys know that if you're expecting music on Tuesday or Thursday night, it's not gone forever. It's just a little break.
All right, taking a pause on the music then.
Sweet. And then
so should we get into it?
Let's get into the questions. Right. The first one comes from Emily. She asked, "How do we make our beer gluten reduced, and kind of how that process works?"
We use a product called Clarex. Clarex was originally used as a shelf stabilizer for beer.
Yeah, it would do so. Like, it's kind of beer nerd stuff, but like sometimes when a beer gets cooled down, it gets what's called chill haze, and it would prevent that and do some other things.
So bigger beer companies were using that, and then eventually somehow discovered that it was actually reducing the gluten in their beers.
Yeah.
In fact, greatly reducing the gluten in their beers. And now it's actually used as a gluten reducer. And when we say that, that's sort of I don't know what the term is for that, but the government, even if that tested at the levels that you could say that was gluten-free, the government will not allow us to say it's gluten-free because it was originally made from a gluten containing product.
Exactly.
So we have to say gluten reduced, but most of the time they test below the threshold of that you could consider it actually gluten-free.
Exactly. So yeah, what it does is it basically the mechanism goes in, and for some reason it doesn't go after any of the other proteins, so it doesn't affect things like head retention and that. It just goes after the specific gluten proline protein, and it basically breaks it down. Had it explained to me like that if you look at the spikes on the gluten shell, it kind of like gnaws all those spikes down and makes it a lot less irritable, and the parts per million really, really low.
Yeah, it was explained to me like that too. A gluten shell is spiky, kind of like a sea urchin, and that's why it's kind of inflammatory to a lot of people, and that somehow just kind of melts those spikes off of there, and it makes it tolerable. So we try to use it in as many beers as we can. Obviously, some beers, traditionally they were obviously putting gluten in that beer. That's kind of, your wheat beers and stuff like that. It's just kind of part of the style. Yeah. And so we don't typically use it in those, but we do use it in any other beer that we think.
Yeah, so a rule of thumb, sometimes we get asked or doesn't get put on the chalkboard or kind of gets moved down the line where we don't get the GR on there. Our sour ales don't get it. And then any hazy beer, so a hazy IPA, a Hefeweizen, if it's supposed to have haze, we don't put it in there. And that's because it's in the name Clarix. It will clarify the haze. Right. So it just works against what we're trying to do with that style. So if you're coming in trying to figure out and it's not marked, rule of thumb is if it's not sour and it's not hazy, it's probably gluten reduced. So our staples, shoehorn, blonde, amber, all of those are gluten reduced. Any stout, anything like that is probably gluten reduced. And if you have any other questions, ask your bartender. If they don't know offhand, they can always
I'm sure they'll text
find
us.
out. So
we'll get you the information.
But yeah,
we try to mark it on the board. So.
Exactly.
All right.
So
hopefully that answers your question, Emily.
And then Steph Care Bear asked, how do we count calories with Shoe Tree beer? So, we're not like Budweiser where we're putting like Bud Light 100 calories a can. So there's we'll give you an easy way to kind of calculate it, where you just take the ABV and you times it by 2.5. Times it by how many ounces. So, for example, if you had a 5% ABV beer, times that by 2.5, and then times it by like a 16-ounce beer, which is our standard pint, that's 200 calories. And then if you want like a quick, easy pocket chart, I found at thegirlandherbeer.com, and she has the chart where it's like how many ounces, what's the ABV, and then it shows you the calories. So, and then there's also, if you just Google ABV calorie counter beer, there's a bunch of different, websites that you can just click in the ounces and the ABV, and it figures it out for you. So.
Right on. That's pretty easy.
Easy peasy. Dane asked, are we thinking about doing any barrel-aged beers?
Absolutely we are. When we did this... the last Stouticus that we did with Min and Meat and Deli, where we barrel aged that in a Knob Creek barrel, I can tell you we're all hooked, especially me. We have a lot of plans for barrel aged beers in the future. In fact, some that we've already got started is a rye stout.
We got a rye stout. I forgot to write down. We have the barley wine.
Yeah, that barley wine's going in a Frey Ranch barrel.
We got a Goza that's going to go in a Bentley gin barrel. And then we definitely have plans to get Stouticus in a Frey Ranch barrel here quickly.
Yes.
So the answer is yes, barrel-aged beers will be coming more and more.
For sure.
Brent asked, do we brew Disco Ninja?
No, we do not. That was a collaboration beer that we brewed with Revision. They approached us to do it. We were more than happy to do it with them. They, especially at the time, like they were so much bigger than us, and it was them doing us a huge favor to do this collaboration. Exactly. What we did was collaborate on the recipe. So that was kind of our involvement in that. We did go down for the first batch and kind of ceremonially help them brew, but honestly, I think maybe we dumped some hops in there.
And hops and some flaked. Right. But yeah, it was Revision's and ours first hazy IPA we had done.
So that
it's kind of kicked off the Revision
hazy
train that they started, you know. And then we brewed way back in the day. We brewed a Disco Ninja remix, was the sour version. And so you kind of see the two trains. They went on the hazy train, and we have a large variety, but we love sour beer. So
we kind of
we both went on that. But
what's cool about that too, I think a lot of people don't know, is Wicked Shifty was derived from that.
Yeah, original. We kind of took what we learned, and then, we had some fun hops that were in Disco Ninja, like Galaxy and stuff, that are really hard to source. So we kind of tweaked and turned those out, and then tweaked little things we wanted to tweak to make it more, to kind of play into the sourness a little more. So,
and that turned out to be our very first GABF medal. So
as we kind of
use that. We can't thank those guys enough for putting our name on that can, and it's really cool. We get tagged still to this day. I mean, that beer's around the world, and we'll get tagged in like Japan, Australia,
you name it. So,
so shout out to Revision. Thanks again for doing that with us. It was fun. Maybe we should do a follow-up for that sometime.
Yeah. Hit them up.
No, we don't brew it. It's brewed there.
But we
do try to carry it.
Yeah, we've been keeping it on, especially Minden has some more taps than Carson. And then putting it in cans and stuff just because, it's a great beer. They're still, they're still brewing it. So the longevity of that collab is just really cool to see. It's been years and years. So, right on.
Thanks, Brent.
And the next one is from Jennifer, and she asked, what beer are we most proud of, and does root beer stout have a special place in our heart?
Okay, well, I'll start. The beer I'm most proud of, and I know we kind of just talked about it, but it's the truth. I'm really most proud of that last barrel-aged Stouticus beer we did. It just turned out to me, it exuded a world-class beer. That's one of the beers styles we started in craft beer. We really like dark barrel-aged beers, and I just felt like when we tasted that, I just really felt like that held up, and it's, for me, that's the one at this point that I'm the most proud of.
Yeah, and mine was Stouticus as well, any form.
Right.
It just took years and years of dialing in. That grain bill is a sight to see. It's got all sorts of different ingredients.
Yeah.
And
a lot of work went into Stouticus. I mean, that thing was knocking on the door of a medal for a lot of years.
We had like 2 or 3 years where we're getting the final round, and it's just like...
So, little tweaks from, judges' criticisms, and you can't spend that much time on a beer and then have it pay off, with some medals, and just that was such a great base. I think that's why that barrel-aged version was so good, and I think that's why there's a real future for Stouticus in barrels down the line.
Yeah.
And as far as root beer stout goes, I do want to brew it again. It does have a special place in my heart. In fact, a lot of people don't know this, but that was the very first beer that Paul and I entered into a homebrew competition.
Yep.
And we took it. It was open to the general public and also judged by some brewers from Sierra Nevada came down.
Yep.
Or a brewer, I'm not sure. I can't remember. But
I think it was one or two guys, but yeah.
But yeah, so we had that beer. It was, well received by just the general public, but then it didn't place. And we were like, what the hell? We thought for sure we were going to get a medal for that.
Yeah, we had like fans and stuff. It was crazy.
And we were leaving, and the one of the Sierra Nevada brewers came up and was like, hey, did you guys brew that root beer stout? And we're like, yeah. And he's like, man, you were right there for third place. He's like, it was just, just a little too astringent, just hung a little bit too long on the bitterness. And, man, we were over the moon. We were like, that guy, he's a real brewer.
Yeah, he's the real deal.
And he took the time to talk to us. I think he flagged us down in the parking lot. And,
yeah, we were getting ready to leave, and it was like...
And that was, honestly, really kindled the fire. We were like, okay, we want to win a homebrew competition now.
Yeah.
And begin dialing in that beer. We put a lot of work into that beer, and we actually had it here for a while, and it just sort of fell off. And I don't know, we were just off to the races brewing beers, and it kind of just got put on the back burner and never came back. But not for any reason. People liked it. I like it. So I want to bring it back. And yeah, it has a super special place in our heart. So thanks for that question, Jennifer, aka JJ.
Hey, JJ.
Okay, so who's up next?
So Jeremy asked, why isn't Rootang on all the time? And I was gonna kind of tackle this one, like, why isn't all of our favorite beers on all the time? So, for me, it's just, we like brewing a wide variety of different and unique beers. So sometimes it just takes a while to come back in the rotation, and I get it too, and it's your favorite one. You're like, well, why isn't it back? Yeah. So that's kind of, we kind of keep it fresh and keep it going and moving with our seasonals. So that's kind of why any beer might not be on all the time. It's not that we're like abandoning it forever, just kind of like root beer stout. It's just in the rotation.
But it does help, like this question, puts it back on our radar. And next time I have a sour to fill, that might pop up and we get it back.
Yep.
So if there's a beer you really loved, don't hesitate to ask the bartenders to let us know when it's coming, or ask us when it's coming back. I don't think we've really hatcheted much permanently, so I'm willing to bring back pretty much anything.
Yep.
Barring lavender wheat.
Yeah.
And that just it's not even that I don't like the beer so much. It's just that last batch we had, the lavender bag broke open inside the fermenter and plugged everything up, and it was just a complete nightmare. I ended up tying that fermenter up for an extra week, trying to get that beer out of there.
Yeah, we were like having inline filters, and then it'd clog, and then you'd empty. It was just a nightmare.
So, we kind of just haven't done that because we haven't been able to be reminded of that.
Yeah. It's funny, though. You'll still get a text. Did we brew a lavender wheat? That's back when I was still, bartending. So, it was just, that beer was rough.
Yeah, so I'm not ready to brew that weekend, but any other
beer. Always, and feel free to drop a line, because then we know, like, hey, people are missing that beer.
Sure. So thanks, Jeremy.
Next question comes from Shane. I'm kind of just paraphrase. Noticed a lot of our seasonals lately are hoppy or sour, and then asked, are we planning to do anything with lactose? So I kind of took that as more to the sweeter side.
Or even, I think, if I'm not mistaken, they were also like, have we considered lactose in some of our staples, i.e. Cherry Godmother? I believe did Cherry Godmother used to have lactose in it?
Cherry didn't, but Sherbert did.
Sherbert used to, yeah. So lactose is a little bit of a tricky one. So like, it's a great tool for brewers because it's an unfermentable sugar to yeast. So if you need, to back sweeten a beer or add some body to a beer, it's a great sugar. And it's not really sweet. If you ever taste lactose, it's not like cane sugar. It's more like creamer.
Yeah, exactly.
And but unfortunately, it limits who can drink the beer because so many people are lactose intolerant.
Yeah.
And so we started trying to strip it out of beers that we thought we could get away with it in. Sherbet was one of them. I think we do still use it in a couple of beers.
We use it in like the cocoa burritos.
We
use it in like the pretzel drips.
That's like a pastry stout, and it's kind of come to be expected in the style. And we just felt like we couldn't make the same beer without it.
Yeah.
Also, the tie-in with the ice cream and stuff, we just felt it appropriate to leave it in on that one. So we're sorry if you're lactose intolerant and you can't enjoy the cocoa burrito, but I don't think it's that much. So, give it a couple sips and see how
you do.
Yeah. But
if your allergy isn't anything crazy or not.
But as far as like a bunch of our seasonals being hoppy or sours, that's probably guilty as charged. But we do have some. We try not to lock ourselves into that.
Yeah, we try to rotate a lager through. We have the Hefeweizen. Brown is kind of in this between phase on being a Sizzler or not.
Amber. That's a solid, beer.
Yeah.
Well, that's a staple.
Yeah,
not so much a seasonal, but like the Dunkels, that kind of stuff. We try to not just do sours, but also capitalism. It is capitalism, and those suckers are selling, and so are hoppy beers. So you will tend to see a little bit more of those, but that's just due to demand, I think. As far as adding lactose to the staples, I don't think you'll see that. Maybe we could try that on a very small experimental level, but for the most part, we would just be limiting who could enjoy that beer.
With sour beers, there's kind of some other ingredients we can use that creates that element. And so we tend to just use those instead of lactose. So.
But good question.
Yeah.
Like I said, the cocoa burrito does still have it. So.
Yeah. So the next one comes from Nemo in Space. He is.
Oh yeah, I remember this one.
So I'm going to kind of break down get to the nitty gritty. Basically,
he had a lot to say.
Why does Carson get better or different beer than Minden? And then kind of why don't beers go on at the same time?
Or he was upset to like. He lives, obviously, what I took it as he lives closer to the Minden Brewery, and he's seeing, like, Straw Nana come on in Carson and not in Minden, and kind of wondering, like, what's the deal with that? It's not on purpose. In fact, it probably just happens to be the beers you happen to be looking forward to, because it's a fact that Minden has more taps than Carson. Yeah. So just by virtue of that, it's going to have more selection than Carson. But it seems that sometimes it's the beers Nemo in Space wants on right away, which we also do try. So here's the thing. Not all the beers can go on at the same time because we have a different number of taps and different beers will fall off. So if we run out of it here and I have an open spot and Ryan dropped off a Dunkel, that's going on.
Yeah.
And the Dunkel won't go on out there till one drops off and it goes on. So it's not that it won't ever go there. It eventually makes its way.
Yeah, the beer gets allocated. So say Minden brews a batch. They get, 2 kegs. We get 2 kegs. It just might come on at either place sometimes sooner or later. but 99% of the time it goes both places, and if not, it probably only goes to Minden.
Right.
So,
most of the time, the exclusives have been to Minden.
Yeah.
But we love your enthusiasm,
Yeah.
Nemo and Space, dude. I wish we could make it like you had every beer you wanted there every time. It's just not the case. It won't.
Yeah.
It's not possible for us to do, but we try our best.
Try our best. If
And it's kind of a grass is greener situation, you know, like we get it in Carson too. Like when we ran out of the, what was the New Zealand?
We ran out of the West Coast DIPA, New Zealand.
But
and
Minden
it still has
had
it. So people are like, why don't you have it?
Right.
And then we don't have a lager on right now in Carson, but Minden has the Imperial Pils. That's super popular. Stouticus is out in Carson, but still on in Minden. And then the American Porter, which is just a really fun classic American Porter, is out there. Not to mention, they get, if you're a cider drinker, we have some more flexibility out there too, where we bring different products in. So
yeah. So we hear you, Nemo, in Space. I get it, but just try and look on the bright side. It's not too much further of a drive if you got to get out to Carson. If you want to enjoy that beer a little bit earlier, then you might get it in Minden.
But yeah, we try to keep it within a few days, especially if it's like a big can release. We kind of play musical beers, and we'll kind of force the issue and figure out a game plan.
A way to get it on it both,
but the kind of goes down to, we can't have 3 gallons or 4 gallons of 10 different beers start to stack up in the back.
Right.
So we got to get those cleared out. So sometimes we just, it's just like a puzzle game where you're moving it along. But we try really hard. We think about it. We think about the balance of the rail of how many sours, how many lights, how many darks, how many hoppies. We take all that into account and try to find a nice balance for everyone.
Right. So we do our best.
The next question comes from John, and it was, have we ever considered brewing an English bitter?
Well, the thought actually did cross my mind a few months ago, and then just like a lot of thoughts I have, never really came back until you brought it up. I would love to brew an English bitter. I think I'm going to put a bug in Ryan's ear about it, and we can start at Minden.
Yeah.
And see how it goes, and if it takes off, maybe we can do a big batch in Carson.
Yeah, Ryan's kind of been brewing some fun classic styles. So I think that's something definitely we can put in his ear and give him something to brew, and see how it goes and see how it's received. And then Christina asked, why do I always have such a great time at your breweries? And I want to say thanks, first of all. Appreciate the love. I think we put a lot of thought and effort into creating a very welcoming, warm environment where everyone feels, comfortable. We tried to have a product or a beer for everyone, and kind of have that variety, and train our bartenders to kind of drill down and figure out what you're going to enjoy. And then as they get to know you, they know you're like, hey, you like sour beer, this one's on, or you like lagers, we got this one on.
Right.
So we just kind of create that environment. For me too, like we don't have smoking, so it's nice, it's clean, it's smoke free.
But we do have an outside.
But outside where you can. So
you need to burn one down, you can still do that.
But so we just kind of really focus on making it a warm, welcoming environment, and make sure hopefully everyone's having a great time. And that's kind of been our formula since the beginning, and we're glad you're enjoying it.
Yeah, we're glad you enjoy it. I like to think that it comes through that we just love what we do so much that, that's why you love being here. You can just feel that.
Yep.
Our passion and stuff. So was that
that's the last one?
You know what? I got one more.
Okay.
This one I think was geared specifically to me in general, and this one comes from my good buddy Phil Morelli, and he asked if you were stuck in a '78 Ford Granada down at the river, what is the best way to get out? And I think anybody listening to that question knows that you shouldn't have a 78 Ford Granada down at the river in the first place. But, for anybody out there listening, if you find yourself in that situation, I don't know if I can tell you the best way to get out, but I can tell you a way. And I know you know as well as I do, Phil. All we did was jacked that car up, and we put some river rocks underneath it, and we would get about 6 inches, and then we would do it again. And I don't know, it took us probably 3 or 4 hours to get that Granada out of there. Jeez. And this was pre-cell phone, so now I recommend you get on your cell phone and call a friend or call a tow truck. But back then we were on our own. So I guess my advice to that would be, don't get yourself in that situation. But luckily, me and Phil made it out of that, and I appreciate the question, Phil, and the walk down memory lane. And also, just a tip: if that does happen to you and you don't have any water and you're stuck at the river for 3 hours and there ain't no way in hell you're going to drink Carson River water, go to the AM/PM when you're done, get that Powerade that's on draft.
The on-draft Powerade?
On-draft Powerade. It was probably the most refreshing drink I ever had in my life was after that night. So anyways, Phil, I know it was a joke, but I love the question, and thanks for reminding me of that awesome story.
Right on. Do we want to do a 10-gallon spore roundup?
Let's do a quick 10-gallon spore roundup. We got the new tent set up. We've got a couple blocks, fruiting blocks in there. Nothing to report really. It looks like they might be starting to pen out, and so we're hoping that we got something more to report in the future. But right now it's just kind of waiting to see what happens.
Awesome. And then we got the laminar flow hood coming, so you'll be seeing some cool mad scientists photos coming out on our social media for 10-gallon spores as we get that up and running.
Yeah, that's going to be fun.
All right on, guys. Well, thanks for listening, and I think we answered every question.
Awesome. Thanks for all the questions. That was really fun, actually.
It's good shake-up and some really good, thoughtful questions, and right on. Thanks, guys.
Cheers, guys.